Number 10. The oldest murder scene there were no police reports, no courtroom, no written confession. But deep inside a cave system in Spain, one skull looked like evidence from a murder case. The place is called Sima de los Huesos, the Pit of Bones. It held the remains of ancient human relatives from around 430,000 years ago. Among them was cranium 17, a skull with 2 deep fractures on the front of the head. 2 blows, similar shape, same area. Researchers argued these were not random cracks from falling rocks, not damage after death, and not a simple accident. The pattern looked like deliberate violence. That is what makes this discovery so disturbing. This is not a murder from a kingdom, a city, or a war. This is violence from a world before civilization, before written law, before money, before prisons, before anyone could even write the word crime. And yet the evidence feels familiar. Someone stood close enough to strike. Someone hit once. Then hit again. That second blow is what makes the skull feel so human in the worst possible way. It suggests intention. It suggests anger, fear, revenge, dominance, or something darker we will never know. We like to imagine prehistoric violence as rough survival, animal attacks, hunger, harsh environments. But cranium 17 points to something else. Long before civilization made humans dangerous, humans may have already been dangerous to each other. Number 9. Jabel Sahaba. Jabel Sahaba is one of those discoveries that makes the distant past feel less peaceful than people want it to be. In the Nile Valley, archaeologists found a prehistoric cemetery dating to the end of the Ice Age. The people buried there lived in a time when the environment was changing, resources may have been under pressure, and survival was not guaranteed. But the bones told a darker story. Many of the skeletons showed injuries from stone projectiles. Some wounds had healed, which means the victims had survived earlier attacks. Other wounds were likely fatal. That detail changes the whole scene. This was not just one massacre. It may have been repeated violence. People living, healing, being attacked again, and eventually dying in a world where danger did not only come from animals or climate. It came from other people. Imagine what that means. A small group by the Nile. Families trying to survive. Food, water, movement, territory, all of it under pressure. Then arrows or stone points come flying from another group. No flags, no kingdoms, no official war, just humans attacking humans. Jabel Sahaba feels like an ancient crime file because it shows violence becoming part of daily life. Not one argument, not one accident, a pattern. And once violence becomes a pattern, the prehistoric world starts looking far less innocent. Number 8. Nataruk near Lake Turkana in Kenya. Researchers uncovered the remains of people who died around 10,000 years ago. The site is called Nataruk, and it does not look like a normal burial. Some bodies appeared to be left where they fell. Several showed violent trauma. There were skull fractures, broken bones, and injuries from sharp projectiles. Some remains suggested the victims may have been unable to defend themselves. One of the most unsettling interpretations is that some may have been bound. That detail makes Nataruk feel less like a fight and more like an execution. This was not 2 men arguing over a kill. This was not a clean battle between warriors. It looks like a group was attacked, including men, women, and possibly children. The discovery became controversial because it challenges a comforting idea that large-scale human violence only really began after farming, property, and settled life. Nataruk is older than that. It belongs to hunter-gatherers. People often imagine hunter-gatherer life as brutal because of nature, but socially simple small bands, less ownership, less reason for organised violence. Then Nataruk appears. Bodies in the mud, weapons in the bones. A group caught in a violent moment that stayed buried for thousands of years. Whatever happened there, it feels planned enough to be frightening. Not just survival, not just instinct, something closer to organised human cruelty. Number 7. The Talheim death pit in Germany. Archaeologists found a pit filled with the remains of 34 people. Men, women, children. Their site is called the Talheim death pit, and it dates to around 5000 BC. These were early farming people. They lived in villages, they grew food, They had families. From far away, that sounds like the beginning of a more stable human world. But the pit tells a different story. Many skulls showed heavy trauma. Some victims had arrow wounds. The injuries suggested they were killed violently, then dumped together. This was not a cemetery. It was not a normal burial ground. It was a pit, a whole community or part of one thrown into the earth after violence. That is why Talheim feels so close to a modern crime scene. You can almost see the questions investigators would ask. Who attacked them? Was it a raid? Was it revenge? Was it land? Food? Women? Territory? Did anyone escape? The horror of Talheim is that farming did not remove violence. It may have created new reasons for it. Fields can be stolen, stored food can be raided, villages can be attacked, land can become worth killing for. The tools changed, the lifestyle changed. But once humans had homes, they also had something others could take, and Talheim looks like the moment taking became slaughter. Number 6. Schöneck-Kilianstädten, another Neolithic site in Germany, may be even more disturbing because of one specific detail. At Schöneck-Kilianstädten, archaeologists found the remains of people killed around 7,000 years ago. The bones showed extreme violence, skull trauma, signs of attack, a mass grave. But what made this site stand out was the lower legs. Many victims had broken shin bones around the time of death. That is not a small detail. Broken legs changed the story. This does not feel like random killing in the middle of chaos. It feels like someone wanted the victims unable to run, unable to escape, maybe even humiliated before or after death. The site has been interpreted as evidence of a massacre, possibly connected to conflict between early farming communities. But the emotional weight is in the method. A person killed quickly is one kind of horror. A person disabled, controlled, and then killed is another. Schöneck-Kilianstädten makes prehistoric violence feel organised. It suggests attackers were not simply panicking. They had time, they had control, they had victims in their power. That is why this discovery should not feel human, but does, because the cruelty is recognisable. The same desire to dominate the body of an enemy appears again and again in human history. And here it is, thousands of years before written war stories. Number 5. The Koszyce family grave in southern Poland. Archaeologists found a grave containing 15 people. At first it looked like another prehistoric mass killing, but the closer researchers looked, the stranger it became. The victims had been killed by blows to the head. Women, young men and children were among the dead. Then ancient Dina revealed that many of them were related. This was not just a random group, it was an extended family. Mothers, children, siblings, close relatives. And the way they were buried was careful. Bodies were arranged with family relationships in mind. Mothers near children. Relatives placed together. That means someone who knew them may have returned after the killing. Someone survived. Someone saw the dead and recognized them. Someone took the time to bury them with care. That is what makes Koszyce so haunting. The violence was brutal, but the burial was loving. It feels like the aftermath of a crime where the killers are gone, and the family returns to a home that has become silent. There are no written names, no records, no witness statement, but the grave still tells a story. A household was attacked, a family line was shattered, and whoever buried them tried to restore dignity after something had taken it away. Number 4. Potočani in Croatia. Archaeologists found a small mass grave at Potočani. Inside were the remains of 41 people from around 6,200 years ago. Men, women, children, different ages, different family lines. Many had skull injuries caused by blunt force trauma. The strange part is how little the site explains itself. Some massacre sites suggest family revenge, others suggest raids or warfare, but Potočani feels almost random. Genetic research suggested many of the victims were not close relatives, meaning this was not simply one family being wiped out. It looks like a group of people were gathered, killed, and discarded. That uncertainty makes the site more frightening, because when motive disappears, the violence feels colder. Why them? Why that group? Why kill children? Why leave them like that? Modern people want ancient violence to have a reason. Hunger, war, revenge, territory, but Potočani does not give us the comfort of a clear answer. It only gives us bodies, and skulls broken by other humans. That is enough to make the past feel less distant, because sometimes the most disturbing crimes are not the ones with dramatic motives. They are the ones where the motive is gone, but the damage remains. Number 3. Ötzi the Iceman was found frozen in the Alps. At first, he looked like a miracle of preservation. His clothes survived. His tools survived. His body survived. He became a time capsule from more than 5,000 years ago. But the more researchers studied him, the darker the story became. There was an arrowhead lodged in his shoulder. He had a deep cut on his hand. There were signs that something violent happened before he died. Ötzi was not simply a man who got lost in the mountains. He may have been attacked. Maybe he was running. Maybe he was ambushed. Maybe he escaped one fight only to die later in the cold. That is why his body feels like a murder mystery. A weapon still inside him. A wound on his hand that may suggest close combat. A valuable copper axe still with him, making robbery less simple as a motive. A corpse hidden by ice until the glacier finally gave it back. The most frustrating part is that Ötzi gives us evidence, but not answers. We know he died violently. We do not know who killed him. We do not know why. And maybe that is why people cannot stop talking about him. Because he is not just a mummy. He is an unsolved case from the prehistoric world. Number 2. Gough's Cave in Britain produced one of the darkest Ice Age discoveries in Europe. Human remains from around 14,700 years ago showed cut marks, breakage, and evidence that bodies were processed in ways similar to animal remains. Some skulls appear to have been shaped into cups. That sentence should not feel real. Human skulls turned into cups. The easy explanation would be starvation. Desperate people doing desperate things in a brutal Ice Age world. But the evidence is more complicated. The bones were not just smashed randomly. The skulls were worked carefully. The treatment appears deliberate, possibly ritualized. That makes it more disturbing, not less. Because this may not have been only hunger. It may have been meaning. Maybe the dead were consumed as part of a ritual. Maybe skulls were kept or used in ceremonies. Maybe this was not seen as evil by the people who did it. But from a modern view, it feels like crossing a line. That is what makes Gough's Cave so powerful for this title. It should feel alien, but it does not. Humans have always turned death into symbols. Sometimes beautiful, sometimes horrifying. Number 1. Charterhouse Warren, near Cheddar Gorge in England, may be one of the darkest prehistoric discoveries in Britain. Inside a deep natural shaft, archaeologists found the remains of at least 37 people. Men, women, children. The bones date to the early Bronze Age, around 2200 to 2000 BC. Recent analysis suggested many were killed violently, dismembered, butchered, and that some may have been eaten. That is already disturbing. But the worst part is the context. This does not look like simple survival cannibalism. Researchers did not find clear evidence that these people were starving. Animal bones were present. Food seems to have existed. So if hunger was not the reason, then what was? Punishment? Revenge? Humiliation? A warning to others? The bodies were not treated like ordinary dead. They were broken down, butchered, thrown into a shaft. That makes Charterhouse Warren feel less like a burial and more like a message. A community or enemy group reduced to remains in the most brutal way possible. And this is where the whole list becomes uncomfortable. We call these prehistoric crimes because we are looking back with modern eyes. They had no police, no courts, no written law, but the bones still feel like evidence. The skulls feel like victims. The pits feel like crime scenes. And the acts themselves feel human in the one way we wish they did not. Because long before civilization, humans were already capable of grief, family, ritual, survival, and cruelty.